to me, even though Coach Saban may not want to make changes or look to make changes or try to, switch some things up as Alabama trying to get that championship push on, we're at a point where some more personnel changes, some more personnel adjustments, some more personnel alterations need to be made, need to be done, and this has to happen if Alabama wants to give itself that edge, want to give itself that advantage when you discuss taking on Auburn in the Iron Bowl, taking on Georgia in the SEC Championship, possibly getting into the college football playoff and having those two games as well. You got to give yourself an advantage. You got to give yourself an edge. You got to put yourself in the best case scenario, the best possible situation here to have success. And I know today Coach Saban mentioned that there will be no changes made to the offensive line. Offensive line will continue as is with the rotation that's been out there all season. Now, I know Chris Owens has been relegated to a backup now because you got Darian Dalcourt starting at center, Damian George starting at right tackle, but there's aside from having Chris Owens as a backup, there are no other changes being made on the offensive line. And for me, this is kind of perplexing just due to when you look at this front group here, Bryce Young has been sacked 26 times this season. He's got to be arguably the most sacked quarterback of a Nick Saban era. I will do some numbers on that, but he's got to be up there in terms of most sacked quarterback of a Saban era. He's been sacked 4 times in matchups against LSU, Texas A&M, Arkansas. He's been sacked at least once in all 10 games this season, and we've seen whether it's at right tackle, I know they're trying to bring Damian George along, but whether it's right tackle, guys getting to Bryce Young, whether it's between the center and the guard, guys getting to Bryce Young. Evan Neal is the only guy where you know what he's doing. We know what Neal's doing. There's a reason why Evan Neal's a top 5 draft pick. I mean, in 377 pass snaps, he has not given up a sack, according to Pro Football Focus. So Neal is the real deal. It's just the other 4 guys, you're not seeing the cohesiveness. You're not seeing the togetherness. You're not seeing the continuity in terms of not allowing defensive players to get to Bryce Young and put that young man on the ground. And, for me, just my purposes right here, to me, this just says, this just says that none of the freshmen are ready on that line. This just says, J.C. Latham not ready, seeing how Saban's not making any changes. This just says the Brockemeyer boys, James and Tommy Brockemeyer, not quite ready. I look at guys like Amari Kite. I look at Tommy Brown. I look at Pierce Quick. Are these guys just not ready or just not consistent enough to be on the field? Because for you to say we're not making any changes on the offensive line, and this is a group that's given up 26 sacks, which is more than what it gave up last year to Mac Jones, which is probably more than what it's given up in the past to guys like Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts and Blake Sims and Jacob Coker and A.J. McCarron and Greg McElroy. Bryce has been getting decked. Bryce has been getting whacked, hit, still finds a way to bounce back up, but Coach Saban not making any changes here on the offensive line. So that means this group that's been on the field, this group here has got to come with it in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, because Derek Mason is going to turn the horses loose coming after Bryce Young inside Jordan-Hare. So this line, since Saban's not making no changes, this line got to get down with the get down. They're going to have to come with it here in this rivalry matchup against the Tigers. Another area where some personnel changes need to be done as we look at the secondary, and that would be time to look at Kool-Aid McKinstry now. Time to look at Kool-Aid McKinstry over Josh Jobe. And in the matchup against Arkansas, I think Sam Pittman and offensive coordinator Kendall Browse, they basically looked at each other and said, you know what, we're not going to be able to run the ball on Alabama. We're not going to be able to just line up and run the ball on Alabama. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take our best receiver, Treylon Burks, and we're going to put him on Josh Jobe, and we're going to attack that matchup all game long because we don't believe Josh Jobe is good enough to handle our best guy one-on-one. We don't believe that Jobe has the technique. We don't believe that Jobe has the instincts. We don't believe that Jobe has the ability to handle our guy, our receiver, one-on-one, Treylon Burks. And by God, Arkansas was right because they attacked that matchup all game long. Jobe not playing the ball. Jobe not looking for the ball. Burks had near 200 yards receiving, 2 touchdown receptions on the game. 1 wide receiver torched Alabama secondary, and that was Treylon Burks. And if you look at Pro Football Focus, Jobe consistently grades as the worst corner, one of the worst corners on there. Jobe ranked number 337 in terms of corners. He's way down there. His grade is 63.2 according to Pro Football Focus, and over 300 coverage snaps. So if you're consistently being graded by the data, by the analytics, as one of the worst corners in college football, and you've been up and down in terms of consistency, it's time to look at Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's just time. Kool-Aid, another game where Coach Saban has talked about he played good, he played well, he did what he was supposed to do, he executed out there, growing in confidence. We've seen Jamison Williams talk high on Kool-Aid, DJ Dale talk high on Kool-Aid, Malachi Moore talk high on Kool-Aid. It's time to have a third Bama native. You can look at Malachi Moore from Alabama, Jagan Armour-Davis from the state of Alabama, Kool-Aid's from the state. It's time to have a third Bama native in the secondary. It's just time to go to Kool-Aid McKinstry. Sticking with the secondary here, you look at DeMarco Hellams at that free safety spot, and it's the same thing, the inconsistency. He'll give you a big play. He'll give you a pick here and there. He'll give you a pass breakup here and there, but then he'll also get lost in coverage. But then he'll also miss a tackle. But then he'll also take a bad angle to the ball. But then he'll also bust a coverage, and you just can't have that. You can't have the inconsistencies on the field. When you look at your Alabama, everybody's chasing you. You're considered the measuring stick, and there is a standard of excellence that's supposed to be upheld. You can't have consistent, inconsistent plays on the field, and that's another area. Going back to Pro Football Focus, DeMarco Hellams grades out as one of the worst safeties. In terms of pass coverage, he grades out as one of the worst safeties. So you look at, there's got to be a change made here, whether that change is Malachi Moore at safety, whether that change is Brian Branch at safety, whether that change is Terrion Arnold or Christian Story. You got some guys here. You got some depth here at that safety position. But who is the guy that you want to go with? Alabama started the season with Moore at safety in the game against Miami, and he played well. Had an interception in the game, communicated well, guys were flying to the ball. There's Malachi Moore. I think Brian Branch is an ideal highlight big play free safety. Going back to what he did in high school, Sandy Creek High in Tyrone, Georgia, left that program as its all-time career leader for interceptions. You look at Brian Branch. If you're not feeling those two, you got Christian Story, who has a whole year in the system. This is his second year. He can play that position. You got Terrion Arnold, who came out of high school in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. That's very gifted at that position. I know a lot of people say, well, Steven, Daniel Wright's got experience too. What about Daniel Wright? Daniel Wright has experience, but he's also inconsistent. He's also up and down. He also has moments where he'll make a play and then he'll bust a play. He'll make a play and then he'll miss a tackle. He'll make a play and then he's lost in translation. So you can't have inconsistency. You can't have one play where you that dude and then have 4 to 5 plays where we're going, where the heck is you doing? So you can't have that, especially as we're at this point in the season. So, Bama needs to look at possibly, replacing Hellams there at that free safety spot. Another area you got to look at now is the linebacker position. At middle linebacker, most importantly, Bama needs a thumper at that spot. You need a thumper. You need a hitter. You need somebody that's going to bring that wood, somebody that's going to fly in there, shoot gas, back out, make that tackle. Yo, I'm here. Let the opposition know they're going to feel you all night long. You need somebody that's going to run through that gap and create some havoc. And Henry To'o is not that guy that's going to run through there and create some havoc. It almost looks like Bama's got two weak side linebackers on the field in To'o and Christian Harris. You need a thumper. You need somebody that's going to run through there and boom, just lay folks out. You got to be a little bit crazy to play middle linebacker. You got to be a little bit crazy to play, that position. And Moody's got that thump to him. Moody's got that ability to him. Yes, he may not be the athlete that To'o is, but I expressed this before. He's been in the system longer. He can fit those gaps. He can take on those blocks. He can shed those blocks off. He can attack the ball. And when he's got into games, he's actually played well. When he's gotten into games, he's actually made some playmaking moves out there on the field. And I understand you cannot compare Henry To'o to other linebackers in years past. When you look at the Reuben Fosters, the Reggie Ragnans, the Rolando McClains, the Nico Johnsons, the C.J. Mosleys, the Rashaan Evans, the Sean Dion Hamiltons. I get that because this is a different day of football now with those guys played in then. But at the same time, you being the Alabama football faithful, when you see different guys come to the program and have that standard of excellence, you want to see the guy coming right behind them hold to that same standard, provide that same standard. If you're seeing Reuben and Reggie and C.J. Mosley and Rolando and all of these guys flying around blowing stuff up, you want to see Henry To'o blowing stuff up, especially after how he came in with all this, with all the accolades and the hype and the camaraderie around his name there, but just not seeing that from him this season. I think it's time for Alabama to look at Jalen Moody's direction.